If you've spent some time perusing all the lotions and sunscreens and bubble bath options for your kiddos, you may have seen the brand California Baby.
Founder Jessica Iclisoy started the company 30 years ago. Here she is talking about that on the Today Show.
Some people start their companies from inspiration, and I started my company with outrage.
We like a good outrage story.
Oh, yes, we do.
I'm Colleen DeBaise.
And I'm Sue Williams.
So today on the Story Exchange, we bring you our fascinating conversation with Jessica, who now makes over 200 baby products.
Which are all natural, plant-based, certified organic.
We're testing the ingredients before we use them because there's tons of greenwashing out there.
And we'll share how Jessica turned a dogged pursuit for safer baby products into a thriving business empire.
The thing that really kind of drove me to develop California Baby, I was not starting a business. This was just investigation.
And you'll learn a little bit about things you should and shouldn't be putting on your baby's skin, or anyone's skin for that matter.
Stick around. So let's go back actually more than 30 years ago.
When was your son born? The one who inspired all this?
It was 1990.
1990, okay. So that
Jessica, then just 22, had become a new mom.
In preparation for pregnancy, as a lot of women do, we clean up our lifestyles, right? We stop drinking wine, we stop drinking coffee.
She takes being from the West Coast very seriously.
You know, I'm in Southern California, and so we're very crunchy. We can be very, organic and crunchy.
As a gift for her nursery,
I received some conventional shampoo from a baby shower.
She didn't say the brand, but I'm guessing it was probably something like Johnson & Johnson's baby shampoo. Anyhow, one day she's out shopping.
And I picked up a shampoo from my local health food store, and it said it was all natural, and of course it costs more and all of that. But I was happy to pay that extra cost, for my health and the health of my newborn.
So Jessica now has at home a bottle of big corporate-made baby shampoo and a bottle of the expensive, quote-unquote, all-natural baby shampoo.
That's right. So Jessica, who had worked briefly in fashion but is now a stay-at-home mom, she's spending a lot of time at her local library with her little boy, and one day
I happened to pick up a chemical dictionary.
She randomly spotted it on the cart where you return books.
It's one of those things where fate kind of puts things in front of you, right? I was at the library, I was looking at the go backs, right? And I was like, oh, cosmetic chemical dictionary, interesting. I take it home.
On a whim, she looks up the ingredients listed on the back of the all-natural baby shampoo.
I'm comparing. I thought, let's see how much better, right? Because I was feeling so good about my choices. And I was like, let me see how much better this natural shampoo is than the conventional shampoo. And lo and behold, the ingredients were exactly the same. The only difference was the marketing.
Wow. She got right to the heart of greenwashing at a time when I'm not sure the phrase was even used.
Yeah, it was an eye-opening moment.
So for instance, they both had sodium lauryl sulfate. And sulfates are very good at breaking down fats. But if you're using it on your skin, it's breaking down the acid mantle on your skin. And that's why people get eczema or they get dryness. And also, if you get it in your eyes, it's very damaging to the retinas.
That sounds like a terrible ingredient in a baby shampoo.
I know. Even worse, when Jessica dug a little deeper into the history of sulfates, she found
they were really invented for industrial use. In my research, I found that they were invented by the Navy to degrease their engine parts.
In the engine room, sailors begin lighting off more engines to generate more power.
And then they found commercial uses. So here we have that in our baby shampoo, right? At a different percentage, used, in a different way. But still, for me, even as a young mom who really didn't know that much, just didn't sound right.
And what's even more unsettling to those of us who grew up using these products or slathering them on our children is that sulfates are just one disturbing piece of the equation.
When I, started looking at the ingredients, it was sulfates, parabens, synthetic fragrances. 3 really, really nasty things in a different way. The parabens they have found those parabens in breast cancer, breast tumors, and then synthetic fragrances.
Synthetic fragrances are covered by trade secret protection, which means companies don't have to disclose the exact chemicals they use.
So you could put anything into a fragrance. And typically, there's not just one ingredient, it's thousands to make up that fragrance that is so important to the selling of the product, right? What is the first thing we do? We open the bottle, we smell it, and it's in everything, by the way. So you get that, you're walking through the mall and you smell those donuts. That's synthetic fragrance. That's not real fragrance. It's added.
Do we know anything about synthetic fragrances?
Yes, it's in that library book.
Synthetic fragrances are known. So in that cosmetic dictionary, it said known hormone disruptor.
Well, imagine that in your child's baby shampoo.
Yeah. And as Jessica says,
once you start looking for it, you can find it everywhere. Don't even get me into synthetic candles, okay? You're burning those candles and you're going, this smells so good. And you're wondering why, you can't lose that extra 5 pounds, or you're struggling with your mood, because those are endocrine disruptors. They're disrupting your hormones.
As Jessica and I spoke here, I thought about all the scented candles I've used over the years.
Well, it sounds like the more Jessica researched, the more outraged she became.
Yeah, and that led her down a road that would eventually become California Baby. As she said earlier,
I was not starting a business. This was just investigation. For me, I couldn't go back.
We'll share more of Jessica's story in just a moment.
Stick around.
At the Story Exchange, we're all about innovative women making their mark. If you like what you're hearing, check out our award-winning podcast featuring Dr. Carrie Kelly of Utah.
If you're not familiar with the Salt Lake Valley, we periodically have the worst air quality in the country and occasionally the worst air quality in the world.
Listen to the episode, How Do We Deal with Bad Air Quality, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We've been sharing the story of Jessica Iclisoy, who as a young mom was horrified and outraged to learn that even the quote-unquote all-natural baby products were loaded with chemicals.
Stuff you wouldn't want to put on your newborn baby's skin.
Of course, it was the 1990s, and the organic movement was really just starting.
A delicious, low-fat, low-cholesterol, low-sodium food.
You'd go into health food stores and the products, if they were really, truly trying to be natural, were separating and rotting on the shelf because they weren't stabilized. And people would be like, well, it's natural, so, that should be good enough for you.
Jessica wanted something different.
I thought, no, I want my product to perform like a Johnson & Johnson, right? But I want it to be non-toxic and natural. That's a really tall order, by the way. I did not know that.
So how did she go from learning about these terrible chemicals to developing her own products?
Believe it or not, the answer involves a fax machine.
This was in 1995, so this was even before the internet, right? So it's not something you could Google.
She was motivated to find a solution. She still had a young son, after all, and he still needed some safe shampoo.
As I say, a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous. You can't unknow the things.
And she thought to herself,
okay, if I were going to solve this problem, what would a fantasy product look like?
So she headed to another library, a bigger one this time.
I went to UCLA and I talked to the librarian. I was like, I need to find an alternative to sodium lauryl sulfate. This is what it is. Really your librarian is your best friend, right? And she's like, okay, so you need the trade periodicals. And here come the trade periodicals for the skincare industry. And I'm going through them and I see one company that doesn't say sodium lauryl sulfate. And it's an ingredient called decyl polyglucose. Totally different family. It was developed in Germany. It was so under the radar.
And somewhat difficult to use, but she found a lab in New Jersey that specialized in it. She called it up.
And I'm like, hey, I'm interested in your ingredient. And the chemist was so excited because nobody really wanted to take that time to figure out how to use it.
They struck up a relationship,
We would fax back and forth.
and he taught her how to make a shampoo.
He was like, okay, great, let's do this, and I made it on my stove. And that took really 3 years, so it wasn't immediately. It was back and forth, and I had a baby, and I would get a fax out once a week if I was lucky. And also formulating is not easy. It's hit and miss because we're talking about stability.
Once it was made, she shared the shampoo with friends who loved it, of course.
Now I was like, okay, what do I do? Like, my friends were like, you should sell this. And I thought, ooh, okay, well, I need a bottle.
And I like this detail, but when Jessica selected her first bottle to put her homemade shampoo in, she picked this super durable one, often used in auto shops.
It was like a square, they call it an F style, but I could put a heavy duty pump, because I'm thinking I'm a mom, I got baby in one hand, I could do everything with one hand. So this is a good stable bottle.
This is exactly what happens when you bring a woman's perspective into the R&D process.
Totally. And in fact, one of her male advisors took one look at the bottle.
I remember him not getting it and saying, no, that's not going to work. But then when I would give it to my girlfriends with babies, they'd go, oh my God, thank you. I love it.
So she started selling the shampoo.
And had you named it California Baby at that point?
Yeah. It was called California Baby. I wanted to encompass all that kookiness of California, right? We were the first to organic. We were the first to avocado toast. We were the first to quinoa. We were the first to all of that stuff. That was the life I was living in. And I thought, yeah, let's encompass all of that.
She began selling California Baby shampoo at her local health food store.
Listeners who grew up in Los Angeles might remember Mrs. Gooch's Natural Foods Market, which was later acquired by Whole Foods.
For the first, I would say 8 years, I was the demo girl at the end of the aisle. And I would be very strategic about it. I would be when moms would drop off their kids and do their shopping and their errands, that's when I would be there.
She persuaded moms successfully to spend $15.75 on a bottle of her baby shampoo.
Again, that friend who was a male, he's like, nobody's going to pay $15.75 for a baby shampoo. But then if I talk to moms, they're like, yes.
And pretty soon,
that was it. I had one store, and then one store turned into 2 and 3. I was just hustling, trying to pick up accounts.
And something impressive today, if you Google best-selling baby brands, you'll see California Baby pop up over and over again.
Not bad for someone who wasn't even trying to start a business.
I didn't even know what an invoice was.
Forbes has valued the company as high as $330 million. Although Jessica doesn't disclose revenue, she started the company, which now employs 55 people, with a $2,000 loan from her mom. And she is still the sole owner, despite interest from outside parties.
And you've gotten offers, I would imagine, that you've turned down.
So many. I mean, we've been in business for 30 years now. So, of course, I've talked to people just to really understand what they're thinking. And until they get it, I won't sell.
One thing I noticed when I talked to Jessica, and we've spoken a few times over the years, is how committed she is in an almost borderline obsessive way.
Really, we are the only brand out there for people who have allergies, immune compromised, a whole host of issues. And we actually test for it. So it's not just marketing. If we say our product is gluten-free, we're testing to make sure that there's no cross-contamination, there's no gluten, because there's tons of greenwashing out there.
Let's talk a little bit about where she sources her ingredients and what they are.
Yeah, well, since 2011, the company has had its own 100-acre farm, a former vineyard in Central California that sits on a rolling hill about a mile off the highway.
It's really beautifully situated. You've got the ocean to the north. And what's really beautiful about that, too, is, there's a wind exchange that comes. So we've got the San Ynez Mountains behind us, and there's live oaks, and wild sage grows there.
What do you grow there that becomes ingredients in your products?
Yeah, we're always growing calendula. There's always a calendula field, in one stage or the other.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And calendula is marigold, right?
Yeah, the pot marigold flower. It's been used for centuries to soothe skin. Lavender is very important to us. Eucalyptus, so the eucalyptus that's in our products, we grow those trees, we dry, we do the extractions. Witch hazel.
Those ingredients make it down to her high-tech manufacturing facility in Los Angeles, which is organic certified and FDA registered.
So that means we can make drugs, which sunscreen is a drug. Anything that says eczema on it is a drug. So holding those dual certifications is unusual, by the way, especially in manufacturing.
And this is part of why she won't sell, because many companies don't make products this way.
That's exactly right.
I don't think that big industry has any interest in doing things the way I do it. Our product starts really just with the water. We have a 4-step purification process. Most companies don't even filter their water. I had some people from conventional industry come and look at our process, and they, very big company, said, we would dumb this down immediately. This is way too many steps. This is way too much. And I get it. Like, they want to be making probably 4 batches in one day. I'm making 1 batch in 24 hours.
Jessica has always enjoyed doing things differently from her competitors.
When I first started California Baby, the rest of the industry looked at me like, what the heck is she doing? Just leave her alone. She's kooky.
So maybe that was to your advantage.
Yeah, totally to my advantage, yes.
Yeah.
I think one of my superpowers is to just be barreling down my own lane. I created my own path. So now I'm kind of the master of my own little universe.
I asked her if she has any tips for other women starting a business.
Yes, I've said this before and I will say it again, which is don't start a business, solve a problem. Because then you always know the right answer.
We thank Jessica Iclisoy for sharing her story.
And we thank you for listening.
This has been The Story Exchange. Join us next time to hear more stories about innovative and inspirational women doing the things you'd never dream of. Or maybe you would. If you like this podcast, please share on social media or post a review wherever you listen. It helps other people find the show. And visit our website at thestoryexchange.org, where you'll find news, videos, and tips for entrepreneurial women. And would love to hear from you. Drop us a line at info@thestoryexchange.org or find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky. I'm Colleen DeBaise. Sound editing provided by Nusha Balyan. Production coordinator is Noelle Flago. Executive producers are Sue Williams and Victoria Wang. Our mixer is Pat Donohue. Recorded at Cutting Room Studios in New York City.